Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to come out politics, and the Tories, ably aided by their client media, are attacking Labour for damaging the economy and putting us into a doom loop. The argument works when we've had news reports of the economy unexpectedly contracting for the past couple of months and unemployment rising, of course, linked to the employer national insurance rises. But specialist economic news outlets are painting a somewhat different picture of the economy, a much more optimistic picture of the economy. So what's really happening? But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So the Daily Express are happy to echo the Tory talking points that Labour are wrecking the economy, despite actual economists saying, no, actually things are much better, as the government are claiming. Of course, what Labour need is for all the news to be good in order to prevent the Tory media cherry picking. For example, reports say that May and June saw an unexpected contraction in the economy. Now, this is obviously bad, but there are two things to point out here. First, note that reports talk about the economy unexpectedly contracting. If it was unexpected, how could it be down to what Labour are doing, because their policies are factored into expectations? And indeed, the contraction has been put down to Trump's tariffs. However, the previous figures have been revised upwards as well. It seems that Trump's tariffs didn't actually hit the economy as hard as you might think. It's just that businesses front-loaded a load of trade to dodge the tariffs. So some of the trade lost in May and June was just advanced in April. So the second quarter of the year still saw growth, and we measure growth over quarters, not months, because you can have too much meaningless fluctuation between months. And the fact is that since Labour's first budget announcement, there has been growth in every quarter since. That is the message Labour should be pushing back with. So the economy is actually growing. But it's not just that the data shows growth that Labour should be shouting about. Senior economists are regularly writing articles in the serious papers about optimism for the economy. Business confidence is at its highest level since before the Brexit referendum. So despite the Tories trying to claim that businesses have been battered and complaining about Labour's policies, the facts say otherwise. And this poll was conducted months after Trump began his global trade war, so that has been factored in. The same group also found that customer confidence was at a 10-month high in June as well. I've said before that I think Labour made a big mistake in pushing a sense of doom and gloom last autumn. They were trying to beat the Tories with a stick, but that was pointless and self-defeating. Once you've won power, put the stick away, get out the carrots. However, confidence has been returning. We now have much higher business and consumer confidence, no matter what the Tory client journalists want to claim. I've even seen it myself in ad rates slowly recovering. But that's not all. The chief executive of Lloyds, Charlie Nunn, has been recently explaining why the economy is looking to be in good shape for the future. He made the point, look, what businesses want above all is certainty. Now, how often did I echo this during the Brexit years? Business leaders were crying out for certainty, and yet all the Tories delivered were sweeping changes at a moment's notice. The Trade and Cooperation Agreement was published about a week before it went live, and that was over Christmas, so effectively meaning businesses had zero time to prepare. The Tories kept saying, well, you'll need the UKCA mark, then they would postpone it, and then postpone it again, and so on. They did the same with both customs and standards checks on imports. The last few years have been chaotic. Business plans run for like 5, sometimes 10 years. You can't produce a decent plan if you don't even know what the market's going to look like next year, let alone in 5 years' time. What Labour have done is provided a long-term plan. This is what we're doing. This is the legislation we're pushing. This is the investment we're focusing on. That the mainstream media aren't explaining it to the public doesn't mean it's not happening. Business leaders see it and appreciate the fact that they can now plan properly. That has led to much higher levels of investment almost overnight. Labour have tried to push that message, to be fair, but the media haven't been interested. But the inward investment we're getting now is way higher than since before Brexit. £750 billion invested in infrastructure over the next decade. The latest CFO survey, which stands for Chief Financial Officers, found that the UK is now the joint top place for investment alongside India. If only Labour would develop a comms strategy that was as effective as their industrial strategy, then they may do better at getting more of the public to see that their industrial strategy is really working very well. Sustained growth, quarter on quarter, even against the background of Trump's tariffs and increased instability in the world. a 9-year high for business confidence, rising consumer confidence, and the UK being the joint top destination for global investment. That is not a bad tick list for the first year in power. So business leaders are actually pleased, but this isn't coming at a cost to workers either, because Labour's Employment Rights Bill, Renters' Rights Bill, Best Start Centres, NHS community plans are all going to make their lives better as well. We've already had a decent boost to benefit payments, public sector pay and the minimum wage. Labour are going to remove the age bands from the minimum wage, meaning that young workers will get a big boost by the next election. Notice that Labour have been able to do all of this and still have a 9-year high in business confidence. I'm not going to say it's a case of everyone wins, because on social policy, as I keep saying, Labour continue to unnecessarily insist we must have losers for some reason. But economically, yes, Labour had an aim of getting workers and business leaders to work together in common cause, and this is what we're starting to see in practice. It is actually possible to have wins which everyone can share in, and that's what we're seeing. Major business leaders already see it because they don't get their news from the tabloids. The public are not up to speed on things yet, but the next couple of years is going to start to open their eyes. Although, as always, Labour would still benefit from pointing some things out much more effectively than they have been doing so far. Because they already have economic wins, which the media are interested in reporting on. But let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.